glittering appraisal of his successor, President William Ruto, whom he accuses of crushing the health sector. His Linda Mama, Uhuru said, was better. Was better than Uhuru's Linda Mama. So it's Linda and leaders in the ring coming up. On the other side of the ring, the united opposition is seemingly working hard on the united part. But they're still approaching united from both ends of the word. Some sticking together on one end with the launch of Martha Karua's presidential bid, while another was quietly paraded on the other end of the letter by a former president. United, but at which letter of the word? We cross the T's and dot the I's as we explore the united in the opposition. Later in our final words, Bonya's bone will break bones with the county government of Kiambu and its governor for the most reckless handling of the doctors' strike. Sam Sense will be striving to find the sense separating Linda Jami from Linda Mama. Jamila's memo revisits benchmarking tours by our leaders. What do they ever learn? Kaikai's kicker kicks hard against the competition between construction of affordable housing and construction of state lodges. And on my take, I'll take you to Singapore. No, not that one. Next door. See you in Singapore. The gang is here.
Many of the gains we had in the past have been eroded. Linda Mama and others replaced by new, untried, untested schemes. And while we wait for these experiments to work, Kenyans suffer and our progress is retarded.
The hashtag is NewsGang at Citizen TV Kenya, at Yvonne Okwara. The text line, okay, at Yvonne Okwara, sorry, that's usually Tuesdays. At Yvonne Okwara. Now, in the spirit of fairness,
yes.
At Yvonne Okwara.
At Sam Gituku.
At J. Bonyo.
At Jamila Mohammed.
No, at Yvonne Okwara, you are the spokesperson.
Well, okay, I will take that. Spokes here. So send that feedback in to 22422, and as the Spokes, I've delegated that SMS line to Sam Gituku, who will be taking a look at your text messages. And it is with the delegated duties that we begin. So Sam, I want us to take it from the numbers that you had, earlier, about this, and we'll get into the back and forth, because it was one person who made these comments, but the responses on the other side were from the presidency, deputy presidency, cabinet secretaries, politicians, all the way down. These are numbers, and there's politics around it. We will get to that. But some interesting numbers that you presented earlier on your data point this evening.
Right. Of course, the big conversation about what was supposed to be Linda Mama, what's supposed to be Linda Jami. And you realize that in both contexts, they are informal titles of programs. Because even when the government of, or the administration of Uhuru Kenyatta was introducing the term Linda Mama, I think it was about 2016, it was still not the formal name of the program, because the program was free maternity care. Yeah. So for starters, there is nothing called free maternity care today, as per the government of Kenya and the services that it's offering. So Linda Mama, on the angle of free maternity care, no longer exists. Now, we've been told about Linda Jami, which is obviously the understanding that now the government is working towards implementing the universal health coverage that covers every other person in the country. of course, with the 4 laws that were passed back in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, then gives birth to the different funds that we have. There are 3 of them. There's the primary health care fund, there's the social health insurance fund, and there's the one on emergency, chronic and critical illnesses fund that also has an allocation for persons who would exhaust SHIF allocations, especially because of critical illnesses or chronic illnesses. Chronic obviously being that you will require long-term medication and care. So then, for the government to talk about Linda Jami, it is okay, but when you look at the numbers, they're not necessarily supported to the extent that you'd expect that everyone else is catered for. So yes, we can talk about free maternal care, which like in our earlier segment, we got to the point that it doesn't exactly exist. Because what exists is antenatal clinics and perhaps postnatal clinics, which is a primary health care concern, which you can go and get attended to at a level 2 or level 3 hospital, which are the hospitals that are covered by the primary healthcare fund in Kenya. But at the same time, if you look at the SHIF packages, the SHA packages, you'll find that they're supposed to be normal delivery, valued at 10,000 shillings, and cesarean section in select level 3 hospitals still under primary health care fund. The free primary health care fund, understandably, based on the explanations from the government, this is the Minister of Health as well as President William Ruto, once you register with SHA as a member, then you qualify to get the primary health attendance at any facility of level 2 and 3. But the practicality, the reality on the ground is that if you go to a level 3 hospital, you want a cesarean section, you'll be asked, where's your SHIF contribution? And you know how it goes. They check your eligibility. If you're an employee, meaning you earn a monthly income, it has to be remitted and updated by the 9th of every month. Otherwise, on the 10th, you will not be eligible to get such kind of service. For persons that are not salaried monthly, you have gone through means testing instrument, which is within the system of the Ministry of Health or SHA, then you're supposed to make a contribution, which is annual. So if the assessment is that you should pay 500 shillings per month, in a year that is 6,000 shillings. If you go to such a facility and you're required to have SHIF and you have not made your contribution for the full year, then you do not qualify. That's the practical sense. And therefore, if that is the situation, even that which is supposed to be free maternal care at a level 3 hospital to members registered with SHA, but not contributing under SHIF, you will not access it. So there has been that difficulty, and you find that many providers are talking about that if you go to that facility, they have to check your eligibility under SHIF. So then, the free maternal care is gone. We were talking about, initially it was, when it existed, it was an average of about 4.1 billion shillings every year, supporting close to 1 million patients or mothers. And these are figures from the government anyway, National Treasury. So that does not exist. The other concern that is no longer existent, if it's about Linda Jami, it is the amount of money that was being allocated for these people with severe disability, the orphans and the elderly that would require support to buy medical insurance. So consistently, the allocation used to be 1.8 billion shillings, 1.7 billion shillings. Then it started to decline to about 861 million shillings, which is a reduction by half in the financial year ending June this year. And then now we are talking about 430 million shillings for the current financial year, starting July to June next year. So 430 million shillings as the amount allocated for medical insurance for the category I've described. Ideally, this should be the resources allocated to indigents, which is a creation of the 4 laws that were passed by Parliament. In essence, then, because the least you can contribute is 300 shillings under the current arrangement for SHIF, if you do the math, 430, Jamila, you're good at math, 430 million shillings divided by 300, I think you get about 358,000 households, right? Because a household has an average of 4. So you multiply that, you'll get the figure. So still, the resources are reduced. So jamii ambayo ilikuwa inalindwa by 1.8 billion shillings contribution to medical insurance is no longer being protected. And perhaps this may begin to explain. Recently, there was an event at State House where the government said you were paying shift contributions to several Kenyans. I think it was about over 500,000 households, coming to about 2 million Kenyans. They're making those contributions, but also inviting corporates and philanthropists to come and make contributions to support Kenyans. Why? Because the budget has reduced. So Linda Mama aside, it's gone. Yeah. Linda Jami, not necessarily Tuna Linda Jami, because again, the other figure that I spoke about was 13 billion shillings meant for primary health care. In the analysis of SHIF, and the ministry, every Kenyan is assigned 900 shillings for primary health care, including yourself, Yvonne. So if we are, again, 50 million Kenyans, we should at least be allocating 45 billion shillings. The figure during those discussions was supposed to be 50 billion shillings to the primary health care fund so that you can sort out everyone else to even go to public facilities or whichever facilities that are accredited to offer primary health care. So to allocate 13 billion shillings versus 45 billion shillings, that's like, what, less than a quarter?
A quarter, yeah.
Yvonne, what Gituku is talking about and how he has explained it so well, thank you, Gituku. In my opinion, makes me ask the question that I did before when we were talking, that what was the essence of overhauling the whole system, the health insurance system, from NHIF to SHIF? Because it should be, one, to ensure that people have affordable healthcare for all. But the way it's looking, it's become more complicated compared to how things were before. Because you have all these things that Gituku you're talking about, and you say there's no free maternal care, it's gone. Linda Jami is not working the way it's supposed to be. The money allocated, really was supposed to have been allocated, has not been allocated. We've seen instances of hospitals being shut down because of fictitious claims or plans to defraud SHIF. We had a story the other day, and the people are talking about in Kisii, but one of the oldest hospitals that they had now had been closed because of these claims, and people are wondering how they're going to get service. So it doesn't answer the question of what was this supposed to do? Because sababu kama haisaidii watu, why make this whole overhaul, change everything, have this whole system, the billions one, the digital one, that raised a lot of questions. When people are not getting the care that they need. If you're unable to go to the hospital and get services because, one, maybe you've been unable to pay the yearly contribution, as you say, maybe 6,000 shillings pengine hauna, or if you've gone there and you're an employee on 10th and the amount has not been remitted and you're unable to get service, but really, it doesn't make any sense to me that watu wapati huduma ambao wanapasa kupata. So why did we change things in the first place? It really just does not make sense.
Yeah, I want us to listen to the president responding to what the former president had to say. Let's start with his response to former President Uhuru Kenyatta on Linda Mama.
We should be a bit magnanimous to him. He did time, led our country. And the Linda Mama program was a great program. We developed it under the Jubilee administration, under the leadership of President Uhuru. We learned a lot from the Linda Mama program. And because of the experiences, because of the lessons learned from the Linda Mama program, we designed the Linda Jami program, which was an improvement from the Linda Mama program. So Linda Mama was good. Linda Jami is obviously better.
And then the president went on to list some of the benefits under that program.
It is an improvement from what it was in terms of the scope, from just delivery of mothers, which was the primary target of Linda Mama. We've now improved it to cover prenatal, before the delivery, postnatal, the delivery itself, postnatal, and it's no longer targeting Mama. It is targeting Jami, Mama plus the children plus the household. The figures have also increased in terms of benefits. Actually, the figures have doubled from 2,000, between 2,000 and 2,500 to now 10,000 to 30,000. So we have enhanced the program, but we must accept that We learned the lessons from Linda Mama. That's why we designed a better Linda Jami program.
So there is a defense with him giving the figures for Linda Jami. That is President William Ruto on the same.
There's a mistake there.
Yes, I wanted to. I was actually coming back to.
Yeah, because
sorry, just allow me. It's the battle of the data points. All right, now. So give us your numbers.
Yeah, because the president is talking about it's an improvement from 2,500. No, it's not. Normal delivery at level 2-3 hospital was supposed to be 3,500 shillings. At a level 4 to 6 was supposed to be 6,000 shillings. The cesarean section was supposed to be between 10,000 shillings and 17,000 shillings, where 10,000 is for lower levels of hospitals, 17,000 at higher hospitals. But yes, he's spot on what the current regime offers, because it's 10,000 shillings for normal delivery and 30,000 shillings for cesarean section.
Yeah, here we are, Jay. So the former president versus the current president on such a key pillar as health cover, particularly for mothers.
There would have been no debate or discussion around what is better or who offered what better, simply because what we have currently has got so many moving parts. And even if you ask the best of the best in the medical field, they can't pinpoint to what exactly do we have, what it offers, and where. And I think this is the first thing that the William Ruto administration must acknowledge, that 1 year later, why there's these debates and all these questions around this program is simply because, one, there was no buy-in. And the reason why there was no buy-in is simply because people do not understand the concept and the process. Only a few people who perhaps are seated, I don't think they're even seated at the Ministry of Health. They're somewhere in State House. They're the people who understand these things better and how it works. And over the last 12 months, it is clearly evident that the Kenyan person that is being said to be the primary beneficiary of this does not understand. And how do you then deal with this? You deal with this by acknowledging that the population truly do not understand what this is. And that is why you find people who say, it worked for me. Then you ask them, how did it work? Then they say, I don't know. I just said I'm registered and I was told my bills were taken care of. For NHIF, it was very clear that if I go to hospital, then whatever service I'm going to get, this is what NHIF would take care of, and this is what I'd pay on my own. So those are the building blocks of ensuring that such a huge and money-draining concept is understood and there is buy-in. But I see a feeling where it is all kifua. It has to work by any means necessary. That if you raise concerns, then you are against it. That if you ask questions, then chances are you feel either jilted or something.
Or privileged.
Or privileged, yes. Yeah. So I think the way NHIF, because these same teething problems, I remember very well in the early 90s, around 1992, 1993, when NHIF came into being. They're all there. But it took time for it to work. So the government must acknowledge that with such a humongous project, these teething problems are there, and they will continue to be there. However, they must acknowledge also that the process of understanding it should be left to what LK was earlier saying, people who know, understand, as opposed to pitching for it in political podiums.
Right.
Because then we take it politically and we deal with it politically.
Yeah. In fact, I want us to now listen to the Cabinet Secretary in charge of health, who then now brought in the issues that you're talking about, NHIF now, NHIF then versus SHA today, and directly responding to the former president.
Don't listen to naysayers. But because I'm giving information, they left us with 30 billion fictitious NHIF debt. Out of that debt, Linda Mama debt under NHIF inpatient was 4.8 billion. Outpatient was 306 million. In total, my good friend, my former leader, you have left us with 5.6 billion Linda Mama. You should thank us. We did not look for the money. We did not went to public liars and said you left us. You left us with many debt. But today, because you started it, Linda Mama left a debt with us, Your Excellency.
So it's also interesting about who's saying this.
Oh, yes.
There's a saying in Kiswahili, shilingi moja kwa ya pili.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
1 shilling.
No.
Or another.
Or like this.
No.
No, I'm
The
just
size
trying
of
to
the
understand.
same coin.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay. That's what it means.
Yeah.
Okay, I was today years old.
Nakifanya Kiswahili.
Had to learn.
Nakifanya sana.
But I think what I find fascinating is the man who is speaking. Because up until 2020, he was the leader of majority in the National Assembly. This is the house that allocates resources. It is the house that allocated resources to free maternity care from 2013, then converted to Linda Mama from 2016. He was there. This is the house of oversight. If there were pending bills, they would know. If there were fictitious payments, as he says, Parliament would know. Exactly. He was there. Now, at the same time,
there as majority leader.
Leader of majority.
Yes.
He had the president's ear,
Yeah.
and of course the deputy president then, who is now the president. At the same time, who was the last cabinet secretary for health under President Uhuru Kenyatta?
Mutahi Kagwe.
His name is Mutahi Kagwe. Where is he today? He sits in cabinet with Aden Duale. Where's his office? Aden Duale goes to the office, Afya House. Mutahi Kagwe goes to the office, Kilimo House. They are neighbors. They can actually share parking. Park your car, have a chat over the parking area. Then each of you branches to their own side of the office. Now, it is pretty interesting that it's getting here because I don't really think it's about the challenges of administering this fund that is at play here. It is just about political scores being settled. Because you recall that in 2020, the year 2020, that's when Aden Duale ceased being the leader of majority and of course now branched out to go and lead the path on how William Ruto was going to become president. At that time, the relations between the president and his deputy was so broken to an extent that what we witnessed in the campaign trail, you clearly remember what it was. So really, I don't know if Kenyans should take seriously the accusations going on fictitious debts. Remember, there's also a question that if there were 30 billion worth of debts, and there has been this line being repeated by the political class, 30 billion shillings debt of NHIF after 60 years. And up until recently, there were close to 40 billion shillings worth of pending payouts from SHA in its first anniversary. And by the way, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
SHA is one.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you left us with debt. Linus, who is you and who is us? Because
Walikuwa huko.
You is him plus them. Us is, again...
Us with us.
So what's going on here? Who's addressing who?
We are you.
Are you with us?
Are you me? Are we you?
Are we us?
Are we us?
Yes, I'm with us. I think Sam has put it aptly. And I can only add by saying what we have is actually the third term of the Jubilee administration that started in 2013. It's always interesting to see politicians changing jerseys and pretending that they have nothing to do with the past. President William Ruto himself, as deputy president, used to tell the media. If anything goes wrong, ask me and ask. Yes. Meaning, Linda Mama and Linda Jami can actually be resolved through a phone call privately, especially when it comes to differences. But we should see what this is all about. It is about politics. It's about the broken relations between the current president and the former president. This is an eruption of fresh clashes, if I can call it that, because there seemed to be some truce since that visit to Ichaweri, but something seems to have changed. What, of course, has changed is talk of 2027 is starting to gain momentum. And let's remember where the former president spoke. He spoke at his party's National Delegates Conference, where he did something else without saying it. He paraded a silent, can we call him a candidate? His former interior CS was seated there. Obviously, there was a message being sent here with regard to the 2027 election. So even this idea of saying this government has done this, and I just want us to listen to the former president expanding the scope of the attack. It wasn't just about health. Yeah. It was also about kuzungushwa, kusumbuliwa. I think Monica can take us there.
Tumezungushwa. Tumezungushwa. Tumezungushwa na kusumbuliwa. Wachache wamelipwa. Wengine wamejiita wakuu. Lakini hakuna mkuu kushinda Mwenyezi Mungu, na tumejiona tukiwa hapa.
Right. He also had a few things to say about the judiciary. Let's listen to him.
That we also face challenges. Key among them being our war against corruption in government that was less than successful. Our intergovernment relations also left much to be desired. A case in point being the uneasy relationship with the judiciary over the appointment of judges. To my mind, the framers of our Constitution intended that the different arms of government will be simultaneously independent, but always interdependent, for the common good of our people and nation. It was never our intention to deny them their independence or to interfere with their operations.
It was a blistering appraisal of his successor, and he went all the way to saying, without exactly stating it, that he was questioning the broad-based arrangement. And let's listen to him talking about the president working with former Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
We worked as a party to bring greater cohesion in our social construct, to reduce ethnic tensions and address both social and regional equalities. This noble effort, unfortunately, was used against us in the last campaigns, it being called an attempt to erode democracy. I wonder what they call theirs today.
So there was a handshake, BBI, and then there is the broad-based. Right now, he's saying, what is the difference? It's a bit another political version of Linda Mama and Linda Jami.
This is better.
Yeah. And now they went for politics. And you can see the politicians and political reactions now started coming in. And no one is talking about Linda Mama, Linda Jami. They went straight to politics. want us to listen to Oscar Sudi.
I think we have the reactions from the Kenya Kwanza leaders.
Yep.
It's 1.8.
Hiyo Linda Mama ambayo ilikuwa inachunga mambo ya wamama wajawazito, sasa tumeipanua kupitia SHA. Sio Linda Mama pekee, inalinda mama, inalinda mzee, inalinda kijana.
The truth is, I am sure deep in your heart, you are shocked that William Ruto has managed to stabilize the economy of this country.
Uliogopa maneno ya housing, uliogopa hii maneno yote, kubadilisha maneno ya masomo nini, sasa ida kusumbua kichwa, unaona mwingine anafanya.
Wewe nenda kimya, wacha Kenya iende mbele.
We have not told Kenyans you are the problem. Tulikuwa tunajaribu kulipa madeni ambao wao ulikopa.
You are a part and a parcel of the mess that Kenya is undergoing. You cannot run away.
We expect that those who call themselves the opposition can point out the kind of issues that the former president was made to talk about, but not to have the president himself, the former president himself, dragged into partisan politics.
So you can see exactly where everyone stands, and you can see right there when Gladys Wanga, the governor for Homa Bay, speaks, the broad-based element in the government response to former President Uhuru Kenyatta. But this is all it was about. It's about 2027. And I just want us to listen to former President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2.1 talking about fielding candidates in 2027, which is the crux of the whole matter.
We shall be preparing for the next general election, and doing so in earnest. And it remains our firm intention to field the best possible candidates for all elective positions. We shall either do this on our own, or we shall do this in concert with like-minded political movements.
So like-minded political movements. And without saying it again, I think what President Uhuru Kenyatta, former President Uhuru Kenyatta is saying is he'll not be on the same side as President William Ruto come the next election. But this is Kenya. It's 2 years to the elections. This is our first reading of what went on at that Jubilee conference.
Yvonne, I was just thinking about how when this government took over, there was a lot that was said about what was wrong with the previous regime. President Uhuru Kenyatta was blamed for a lot of things from the first day when the president and his deputy then was sworn in, that this went wrong because of this, we are here, we are going to fix things, almost making people forget that William Ruto was the deputy president for 10 years. And people actually, I think, kind of forgot. So when he was speaking, he was talking about like Wimisikwa, you know, all these things we are blaming Uhuru Kenyatta. And Uhuru Kenyatta, I think, did not have anything to hakuwa na kitu ya kulalamikia about. He had nothing to say about them in the beginning. I remember he came out to speak when and there were things that happened in the beginning, Yvonne. For instance, when his farm was raided in March 2023 and his sheep was stolen. Remember that incident? It was during the Azimio protests and people raided the farm. 1,500 sheep was stolen. And then tunakaa kidogo, in July 2023, former President Uhuru Kenyatta's son's home was raided by people who are said to have been police officers. And then a few days before that, I think on July 18th, the security for his mother, former First Lady Mama Nginya, was withdrawn. So I remember former President Uhuru Kenyatta speaking outside the home of his son, saying, come for me. Yeah. Don't come after my family. Leave my son alone. Leave my mother alone. And that's when he was speaking out. But then now, this is 3 years later. And he has things to say about this regime. He can actually point out and say, well, Linda Mama was better, Linda Jami is not working, this is not working, this is not working, because now hakuna kitu cha kusema. I'd like us to listen to President talking about 1.1, what he said, kazi yetu ililenga kila kona ya nchi. He was talking about the things that they did when he was in power.
Many of the gains we had in the past have been eroded Linda Mama and others, replaced by new, untried, untested schemes. And while we wait for these experiments to work, Kenyans suffer and our progress is retarded. Na nyinyi mnajua hata kazi ambazo tulikuwa tukifanya wakati tulikuwa na nafasi ya uongozi wa taifa hili letu la Kenya lilikuwa linalenga kila kona ya jamhuri yetu ya Kenya. Hakuna pahali ambapo hatukujenga mabarabara. Hakuna pahali ambapo hatukuweka stima. Hakuna pahali ambapo watoto walikuwa wanasemekana wamekosa kuenda shule kwa sababu hawana karo. Watoto wetu wote primary na secondary walikuwa wanasoma kila pahali Kenya hii yetu.
He has something to say now. Anasema wakati wangu this worked, this worked, this worked, this worked. Yeah, pointing a finger at what seems not to be working with this regime. So he's no longer on the receiving end peke yake. He's actually able to dish out something because there are things that are actually not going as planned with this regime. And I think that's basically why we are hearing him speak. And I think going forward, maybe we may hear him speak a bit more, poking holes or pointing out those things that he seems to think are not working as they should.
And indeed, yes.
It is a rather unfortunate situation that Kenyans have to be subjected to, because the work of defending the work was during the tenure when President Kenyatta and Deputy President Ruto served. That's the time they needed to make the communication, convince Kenyans of what exactly we are doing, that this is so good, this is succeeding. That was the time. Because we risk suffering revisionist tendencies. Because life wasn't perfect during that tenure, 2013 to 2022 June. Or no, it wasn't June, it was September. There were challenges. You recall there were many strikes that we covered of teachers. If you remember the former Secretary General Wilson Sossion, there was the strike of more than 100, I think it was 105 or thereabouts.
Yeah.
There's a time county governments had threatened to shut down because of delayed disbursements of resources. There are times schools were late to receive capitation. And indeed, there were several strikes from even the universities themselves. And there are times help disbursements were late. So government is not necessarily efficient, and especially when it comes to getting down to business. And of course, the situation we are in currently, because government is, what is that game where you pass on the baton? Really? And I think even President Kenyatta described it once when he appeared at the Bomas of Kenya, when he was throwing something at the former deputy president. So you receive 1.79 trillion shillings worth of debt from President Mwai Kibaki, and you come in and you accumulate so much debt with a lot of justification.
Grow it.
Yeah. You grow it, indeed. There was a revision of the economy, rebasing of the economy. I think that was in 2014 when we became a lower middle income country, and therefore that meant a lot for us to even access more debt from foreign countries or foreign systems. And in tow was William Ruto to defend why we were taking debt. And I remember President Kenyatta, one of the Christmas breaks, telling journalists in Mombasa at the time, funny how one of my colleagues was there, Hussein Mohammed, you know where he works today. And he was saying that he was taking all that debt because the value of debt is what it does. That you can actually take more than 100% of the GDP of debt as long as you can show results for it. He even gave examples of Japan. And at the time there was a push that you needed to disclose the SGR contract. And he said, just come, I'll get it for you. We didn't. So it was not all rosy. The point here is that governments come, they have a manifesto, they have a plan because they have promised a lot of things to the public. Some of them, most of them which are unachievable. It's a lot of promising that which you cannot deliver. Life becomes more expensive. Indeed, even in the next election in 2027, there will be many promises. Life will become more expensive in 2028. We must be prepared for that. But I think people need to define their legacies when they are serving. revisionist tendencies may not work in the fullness of time.
Indeed. Many remember Eurobond. You remember how we couldn't account for it, and that money went into budgetary support for projects that we couldn't. The SGR, the debt, the cost of building that SGR that was inflated how many times? Almost 3 times. And remember, when did that debt become, when were we to start paying for the principal? 10 years later, right? In 2025. So let's be very clear. The debt situation we find ourselves in was the making of 2 people.
Uhuru.
Exactly, Uhuru. And President William Ruto then said, if there is any question about debt,
come and ask me.
Ask me. So here we are now. In hindsight, you know, that vision is 2020. So, and I see a lot of that on social media, that life was better under, that things were different. And I think just to sum it up, like Alina said, this is 3rd term of the Jubilee administration. Jay, as we take a break.
I think the question then would be, why does Uhuru Kenyatta find his voice now? Why not immediately after William Ruto took over the presidency? And it takes me back to one time when Francis Atwoli said that Uhuru Kenyatta is too young to retire.
Munataka ende wapi?
Munataka ende wapi? And I think these are the things he was speaking about. That once you've retired as a president, like Sam rightfully says, your legacy ought to have been defined then. But again, we must also remember that Uhuru Kenyatta has spent the last 2.5 years of this administration fighting for Jubilee. He didn't have it up to until Rigathi Gachagua was impeached. Remember, at one afternoon, we were called to cover a near blow between Uhuru Kenyatta and some goons and police officers who'd come to take over the party, just across the road. So finally, he finds Jubilee, he looks at it, he cherishes it and realizes, I have a platform that now I can speak and speak as a party leader of Jubilee. So all these things, he finds his voice simply because the race for 2027 is being shaped, but then again, he has a podium that if he speaks as the Jubilee party leader, and sometimes it can be said not as the retired president.
Yeah, interesting distinction. And that's the distinction we're going to come back with and talk about which way forward, because
I am not just saying young in body. We also want young in mind and spirit.
Not young in body, but young in mind and spirit. Many people expected that it was the NDC, right?
Yep.
Was going to declare perhaps a new party leader and a new presidential flag bearer for the party. It just went, they fell slightly short of that with respect to that. And the reason we're talking about this one now is because there's been a lot that was happening with the so-called opposition parties, right? Like we heard before, those ones that style themselves as opposition. It wasn't just Jubilee, it was the PLP with Martha Karua and a number of others. So some saying that there might be a possible split or perhaps not as united as they would seem. But first, Sam, let's understand the expectation, I think, of this meeting of Jubilee and what was meant to be the outcome. Was there something that we didn't get, or is the ground being laid, the foundation for an announcement that everybody seems to be waiting for?
I think a few significant things happened quietly during that meeting. And we'll be listening to what former Interior Cabinet Secretary had said early in the year about his place in the united opposition. Because when we spoke to him, he was saying that he didn't have a political party then. That is the time that he was declaring his bid for the presidency in 2027. And he said a lot of parties were quoting him. They were reaching out to him. And I particularly asked him about what the Jubilee Party Secretary General, Jeremiah Kioni, had said when it comes to the question of, because he had said, Jeremiah Kioni had already said that he wants that Matiang'i runs on a Jubilee ticket. So at the time he was saying that a lot of parties are interested in him. He will be considering to see which party he joins. But on that day when you see him now appearing at that NDC, special NDC, a National Delegates Conference is a conference of people who are primarily members of the Jubilee Party. Mm-hmm. He appears there sitting side by side with the party leader, Uhuru Kenyatta, of course dressed in red, mm-hmm. at least for the shirt. Mm-hmm. So that's very telling on what exactly is the direction, the sentiments of former President Uhuru Kenyatta on how he's going to even steer the nominations, ensuring that every person from whichever region is able to take part in the nominations and have a fair chance to win, that there is not going to be a regional political party. It is pretty telling. And I want us to listen to former Interior Cabinet Secretary 3.5 when he's talking about where he is when it comes to question of the united opposition. Watch.
I am not working by myself. Yep. Let's begin. I'm not working. I don't know where you're going with this, but I'm not working by myself. We are working as a team. We are deployed in various areas, and everyone is working on various activities with a view to, as I said, we must have as wide conversations as possible across the country. To be able to cover the country, we can't all huddle together. Every time we are moving around, you'll see two people here, or two people there, or one person there, or three people that side, and so on. That is how this is going to be done. We are at this foundational moment, and we can't all keep huddling together as it were. Then that way we will not cover the country.
Yeah, so already we are seeing meetings. The PLP meeting is understandable that Fred Matiang'i was already held up in another meeting, that is of the Jubilee Party. But then we saw these leaders appearing somewhere the same day, but also in Kitengela. Let's listen to what Kalonzo Musyoka says about unity of the opposition in 3-2.
We are all the same. Of course, one would wish that it can be first among equals. We are not into that stage yet. Right now, we're actually in the process of studying each other, gelling. You saw the other day, we had 1 or 2 days retreat, and getting to understand each other. We have, of course, teams working very hard behind us with our instructions. We hope to be able to come up with a new coalition name. As soon as that happens, we'll let the country know. But I can tell you one thing. We are so determined, and the country is so determined to get itself liberated, that any of us who will give mixed signals about the need to have a united opposition, because everybody knows when we remain united like this, William Ruto is absolutely one term. And as I said, no ill will meant. It's just a reality.
So that was Wednesday last week on the JKL, and the former vice president was speaking to us. But in the same interview, I asked him the question of his relationship with different candidates who have already declared their ambition. That is Fred Matiang'i, Rigathi Gachagua, as well as Martha Karua. On Fred Matiang'i, he said that he's getting to know him, that he didn't work with him when he was Interior Cabinet Secretary under President Kenyatta, but he's getting to know him. And a very short answer. When I asked him about Rigathi Gachagua, he had so much to say, that he's a brother, that he has opened up to him and the spouse, Dorcas Gachagua, they are hurting, he's listening to them, a lot to say. When I asked him about Martha Karua of PLP, he gratefully said she's a twin sister. She's his twin sister. So clearly you can see where things are. But let me say something about the challenges that the united opposition might face moving forward. First is the question of the personality differences that they have.
Or similarities.
Or similarities, rather.
Cases, yeah.
Or personality clashes.
Yeah.
Clashes. So first, let's talk about Rigathi Gachagua. You know who he is. He was Ruto's running mate and deputy president for how many years? 2 years, I think?
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, and what he has become since that impeachment. And he's been very keen on making sure that President Ruto does not win a second term. So he's quite a domineering person, loves control. He owns the slogan one term. He has been preaching it. And obviously you've heard him speak where he comes from, the votes that are in that region, and why that alone is sufficient to deny President Ruto the seat. He has also been very cordial with Kalonzo Musyoka in the conversations that they've had. So ask yourself, how would, assuming Kalonzo Musyoka was to get the United Opposition ticket and runs the country, how would President Musyoka govern a country where the coalition leader or one of the leaders is Rigathi Gachagua? The second person to talk about is Kalonzo Musyoka. Perhaps one of the few gentlemen in politics that you know, polite, humble, tolerant, that wants to see the best in people, at least what you see in the public. The last he worked in a government organization was when he was vice president of Mwai Kibaki. Yeah. Who was Mwai Kibaki? Another gentleman of politics. He would not shout at you. At least we didn't see that. So appears to have learned some of the tricks under Mwai Kibaki. But then again, what politics do you have today? It's combative. It's no longer about gentlemanship, if you have to look at even the big faces that we have. How would a President Kalonzo again work in a situation? You also have Fred Matiang'i. So Fred Matiang'i, you know him, very forceful when it comes to execution, very keen on results, very thorough. Remember the visits to schools, but also during when he was Interior Cabinet Secretary, and the many visits that he made, the many declarations he made during transitions, during the elections of 2017, the kind of press conferences that he gave, a person who appears so sure about himself. So in that boardroom of the United Opposition, how would it be in the presence of Fred Matiang'i as a person with his character, and knowing that he looks like a person who would love to show leadership? How does that sit with Rigathi Gachagua? Then you have Martha Karua, again, a person who has walked out on presidents. Yeah. Is it Daniel Moi? Yep. Is it Mwai Kibaki when they disagreed and she resigned from government? She was running mate of Raila Odinga in Azimio. When things were not moving in the same direction, she walked out. She was the first to leave. Exactly. Azimio. She removed her party, now Kenya, now PLP, from Azimio. So you can see the character of the personality of these leaders. Sure about themselves. I don't know if it's correct to say almost radical in terms of their judgment and the actions that they can take. So there's a blend of different personalities. The final point I want to make is, as all this is happening, previous coalitions have succeeded because there was an outright leader from the start. When Mwai Kibaki was leading NAK, National Alliance of Kenya, him, Ngilu, and Kijana Wamalwa, there was a sure leader. Yeah. When they came together with LDP, there was a sure leader in Raila Odinga. Yeah. When they formed a coalition, the leadership was Mwai Kibaki and Raila Odinga. If you had to look at the coalition of Jubilee in 2013, or 2012-2013, TNA-URP, there was a sure leader in Uhuru Kenyatta. Come 2022 rather, the coalition of Kenya Kwanza, there is William Ruto, there is Musalia Mudavadi, there is Moses Wetangula. There was only one person who could not run as a deputy president, that is William Ruto. He was the sure leader of Kenya Kwanza coalition under the UDA, which was the biggest party among the three. He became the candidate and outrightly the president. Today, in the United Opposition, who is the sure leader?
On that, I want us to listen, because there was something interesting that happened on Friday, right? The National Delegates Conference of Jubilee, on one hand, at which Sami rightfully pointed out Fred Matiang'i was seated there, dressed in party colors. But on the other hand was Martha Karua, who's the party leader of PLP. And before I get into the optics, this was her declaring her interest in running for president in 2027.
One people, one purpose, one term. Na ndivyo wengine wasifikirie one term ni matusi. I stand before you to tell you that we must demystify power. In Kenya, in East Africa, and in Africa, people get to power and they refuse to leave power. Martha Karua, yours truly, is seeking a single term, one term. I believe that in 5 years it is possible to lay a foundation. Nobody will ever finish the job of making Kenya prosperous. You lay a foundation and you wait for the next team to come and further that. So I want to...
So she wasn't there alone. I want us to listen to now members of the united opposition, some of them, or all of them, save for one, who are saying they will stick together. And there's a reason that this is significant. Watch.
We will subordinate our ambitions to the interest, for the interest of Kenyans.
We shall make whatever sacrifices necessary for this country to make sure, under whatever circumstances, we have one presidential candidate to face William Ruto.
Safari ikianza, basi hatuna budi ila na sisi tuamue kwa kauli moja kwamba kamwe hatutarudi nyuma.
Our presence here is testament that we are here for the long haul.
Sisi tumeamua tutatembea pamoja vile mmetuona hapa hadi mwisho, hadi tuhakikishe one term has happened.
All right, so you notice all the leaders who were present at the PLP National Delegates Conference, and how all of them were vowing to work together. One of them was not there, was in a different place. And July 1, when he said to you, that's Dr. Fred Matiang'i, that, you know, I don't know where you get this impression, you know, we're working together. But granted, it's politics, and you know, things move and things move fast. But there was also something, I think it was in that soundbite that we played earlier, you know, when Uhuru, former President Uhuru Kenyatta was talking about them fielding candidates, it was interesting what he said, that they will field the best possible candidates for all elective positions. It was the last sentence where he said, we shall either do this on our own, or we shall do this in concert with like-minded politicians, or political movements. Now, that's an interesting statement to hear from him at a forum where you have Dr. Fred Matiang'i, either on our own or those with like-minded, whilst on the other side, they're all singing the song of unity, and they're singing the same song, and they're singing the same chorus. So people starting to wonder, you know, what's happening here? Moja amejitenga, wengine wako pamoja. Some are saying either on our own or together with others. The others are clearly stating we're together, you know, sticking together, and, you know, there will be no ego contest and that sort of thing. So interesting times ahead, and even the fact that they had those NDCs on the same day. They could easily have, if things were perhaps different, you know, one has one on one day, then they all go troop to one, and then one has one on the other day. But I found that fairly interesting.
And they have been at events, all of them together, previous to this. And we've seen them meeting informally and having a cup of tea, and we see pictures being released afterwards, after their meeting, all of them together. But even for President William Ruto, the ideal would be a not so united opposition. If they're separating, if Matiang'i ako peke yake na wengine ako pamoja, I mean, those are some votes ambazo zimegawanya, because ultimately, Yvonne, they're going to ask each other, so what are you bringing to the table? Our politics is tribal. So someone will come and say, well, from my region, mina leta kura 3 million. And the question would be, are each of these leaders the kingpins in their areas where they come from? Are you going to say that in Central it's Rigathi Gachagua who is the kingpin, and he'll say, niko na kura zangu 4 million I'm bringing to the table, Kalonzo Musyoka in Ukambani? Are we going to say the same about Eugene Wamalwa in Western? Are we going to say the same about Matiang'i if he is the person who will bring the votes from Kisii? Because ultimately, Yvonne, that's what will matter. What are you bringing to the table? And then ultimately, if they do end up together, who will end up being the flag bearer? That could be one of the considerations. It's important to see how these by-elections play out, especially in those places where there are contests. In Bere, for instance, Kule Western is another one. We want to see who wins, who the people pick and vote for. And as I finish, Yvonne, I think they all need to watch carefully what is going on with the registration of voters that is happening now and how low those numbers are. I know it's just 4 days in and Kenyans tunakwaga lastminute.com, things may change, but I found it very interesting, the comments of one young man who said, raundi hii nimesema siwezi kupiga kura kwa sababu hakuna kitu itanisaidia na naambia Gen Z wenzangu tusipige kura, with our silence wanaweza kutusikia. That was a young man from Bomet. And if they had gone to the university, because there was an event today at Pan University that IBC had organized, and they said, numbers za leo za kuridhisha tumesajili karibu watu 70 people, and they're like, these are good numbers. That's something people need to start watching. Like, hey, are people actually registering as voters? Are young people registering? If they're not, are they thinking the same as this young man who's saying, my kura won't matter? I think it's something that needs to be watched carefully.
Yeah, just I wanted to buttress your point about the strategy of a divided opposition. They seem to be thinking that as well. Let's listen to Rigathi Gachagua, the former deputy president and the former attorney general, on what they term a plan to divide the opposition.
If you see any of us akiteleza, huyo mjue ni nani? Msaliti.
William Ruto knows his goose is cooked, and he has embarked on a very serious scheme to divide the opposition. Be alert. You'll see the next several days the kind of schemes he is having.
But if you want the surest, perhaps hint that things are not well, that you have Jubilee on one side and members of the United Opposition on the other, I want you to listen to Jeremiah Kioni. He was speaking on Hot 96 on a show that's hosted by Emmanuel Tor on Sunday evenings. Just listen to this claim now about impeached former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua.
So when you are dealing about these things, wacha si tupebe hiyo mnaita red wheelbarrow.
So you're saying Gachagua and Ruto are working together?
He said it himself. And I'll give you the date and I'll give you the hour.
When was it?
I'll give you the date and the hour. Immediately I leave this place. Born in Meandika.
Right, so he was speaking once again on Hot 96. That show is called Checkmate, by the way. It's hosted by Emmanuel Tor. It's a very good show. Sundays at 6 p.m.
From 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Yes.
Allow me to plug. I just had to do that. Very nice young man doing a great show there. So if you also want some insights there, you can carry on. Sorry. Shameless plug to the side, Jay.
I think it's easier said than done that the opposition will unite, especially at this point. And what Jeremiah Kioni says is a factor that drove all those gentlemen and women into making those statements they made on Friday. While Uhuru Kenyatta and Fred Matiang'i were somewhere on Ngong Road, they were the historic Ufungamano Hall, declaring and nearly swearing that they'll stick to each other. Yeah. But you realize that all this heightened "we will stick together" statement comes as soon as Uhuru Kenyatta emerges once again. And why is that? It's simply because Fred Matiang'i on his own on that table doesn't really amount to anything politically. Because like Rigathi Gachagua initially indicated when he announced his bid, he asked, he must demonstrate and show us what he is bringing in from his backyard. And you'd want to ask, like Jamila says, that our politics is largely tribal and there's always that tribal king that says, I bring these guys on the table. You'd want to ask, does Matiang'i has that base? And therefore, what happens is, he gives Matiang'i that good sounding board that if he goes to that table again, then he says, I bring Jubilee to the table. And what is it that Jubilee does? to Rigathi Gachagua, especially in Mount Kenya region. And Monica, if you could just play 3.4 when the former president speaks about regional and tribal politics.
Mambo hii ya kusema ati chama hii ni ya upande hii, chama ni ya upande hii, chama ni ya upande hii. La, wacha tuwe na national parties ambazo zinaunganishwa kwa sababu ya sera, lakini sio kwa sababu ya pahali ambapo zimetoka. Haja ni nyinyi mujue ya kwamba huyo mmechagua ni mtu ambaye atajitolea kutendea Wakenya wote pahali popote walipo kwa haki, bila kupora na bila kutenga mtu yeyote. That is the only thing that is important.
And you realize that the conversations before have always been centered around Rigathi Gachagua taking claims to being the Mount Kenya kingpin. And then with now the arrival of Uhuru Kenyatta, then that kingpinship of his stares at a divided region, and therefore he cannot go to the table with his, I have 7 million backing me. Yeah. So all these talks about we must remain united and whoever is not doing what we want is being used by William Ruto is simply saying, there's a guy who is showing up. He's not been with us, but he's also coming up with another guy. Let's be very careful with them. Yeah. And that is why Rigathi Gachagua says William Ruto is behind all these things. Because remember, there's also Moses Kuria in the mountain that seems to be unsettling him every other day. If you look at the grand scheme of things, his party ought to have made a mark going into these by-elections. And what do we see?
People pulling out.
It's being scattered.
Yeah.
Yet, even the simple test of the IBC clearance is yet to be done. Yeah. So, Rigathi Gachagua will insist that we must stick together so that they lock out Uhuru Kenyatta and his teammate, Fred Matiang'i, when they finally decide to join together. For the simple reason that he needs a say on that table, and based on the descriptions that Sam gave, he wants to have a say. Uhuru Kenyatta, Rigathi Gachagua, same team, nah. None of them can give way to the other.
Yeah, before you come in, I just wanted to buttress that point. 1.4, this talk of bitterness, is there? Did people read too much into it, or was it directed at someone in particular?
I have both lost elections and won elections, taking each in my stride, learning that in politics you can never be led by bitterness, anger, or hate. That only deviates you from your mission and vision.
Look, Yvonne, there's only one motivation for the opposition to remain united. They all say one term. And they've made that really, really clear. And then the how also forces them to sit in the same room. And that is Article 138 of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, which in sabbatical 4 requires that a winning presidential candidate must garner at least half, no, more than half of the more than half of the votes cast.
Yeah.
And they must also get at least 25% of more than half of the counties. Now, political egos are really big. They are like big boulders. And when you see this team, had it not been for 138, they could not fit in one room because of the political egos. You can already see the silent wars between them because of the huge egos. But they know at some point they have to do the math around 138. The math around 138 is then what makes regional politics relevant, which is why you see, and I agree, Canon, when you talk about the fight between Rigathi Gachagua and Uhuru Kenyatta, because there's a huge basket there, unfortunately, tribes are actually like commodities in this country. So you count them as like pebbles. And I covered elections in the Gambia where they were voting with
pebbles.
Yeah. That's how you see it. You have 6-7 million pebbles from this region, which is why the fight between the silent war between Uhuru Kenyatta and Rigathi Gachagua is big. And I just want us to go back to Sam Gituku's interaction with Rigathi Gachagua some time back on this specific issue of relations with the former president.
You do know, Uhuru Kenyatta is the undisputed king of the mountain.
And what is your relationship with him?
Good. Brotherly.
When did you do that?
Oh, we talk. You know what happens with our community? We are a very interesting community. We don't fight. We fight very rarely. And when we do, when we realize we fought without a good reason, we patch up. We fought. Oh, yeah.
Months ago?
We've been, when we realized we made a mistake, I'm the one who made the first move of reaching out and apologizing because really we were unfair to Uhuru Kenyatta.
This was the last interview as Deputy President, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then after that, there was the impeachment. You could tell he was trying to reach out because things were already quite bad with the current president, and so he was trying to reach out. And we are seeing a bit of that happening even now. He later claimed that he had met people that were close to the former president. But all in all, this will be a very interesting relationship to watch going forward. For one reason, the battle for regional supremacy, especially in Mount Kenya, is usually a very, very epic one. So epic that it actually cost the opposition the election of 1992. There were two strong candidates from Mount Kenya region. In former President Mwai Kibaki, who was then the leader of DP party, and in former transport minister, former sports minister, former party leader of Ford Asili, Kenneth Stanley Njindo Matiba, who was very, very popular, having rebelled against his former boss, President Moi. And they both went to the ballot purely because of egos that they had. If you combine the votes of Matiba and Mwai Kibaki, they were sufficient to send President Moi home. Those days we didn't have the 50+1 rule, and it was a simple majority. The joined opposition, which also included Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and there were about 8 candidates that time, including John Harun Mwau. They all joined.
Chibule Watsuma was there.
Chibule Watsuma was there as well.
Yeah.
Mukaru Nganga was there. Yeah. It was a big list. They joined. The total number of votes from the opposition was actually 3 times more than what President Moi had. Now there's a constitutional requirement that whoever is elected president must cross the half+1 mark. And that's the only reason these politicians will work together. So the one thing that we know about Mount Kenya politics, which now has 2 players in Uhuru Kenyatta and Rigathi Gachagua, is the knives are long. And Uhuru Kenyatta is actually walking with one in his back. He went to Mount Kenya in the last election to support Raila Odinga. And Rigathi Gachagua actually won that contest and stuck the knife right at the back of Uhuru Kenyatta. And that's way before the ship incident. in the ranch, and this is what happens in this regional politics. I think it's also going to be expanded to look at other candidates like Fred Matiang'i, who appears to enjoy the outright support of the Kisii region, and in a region where another candidate emerged today declaring that he's gotten a party, as former Chief Justice David Maraga, who is also running. So we're going to see, again, in that region, who has the numbers. Because, like I said, votes are mere pebbles in this country. First of all, gather them regionally before you convert them to a national vote. But is something going to change? Jamila, you're talking about the registration of voters and all that. It's time will tell. There have been epic political developments in the last 2 years in this country, right from June last year to now. We can't just assume that it'll be the usual way of doing things. So there must be room for what we don't know.
Yeah. Shamila?
Tunamaliza na naanza.
Abuse of power.
Merudi leo na umekuja na
abuse of power.
I thought you were united.
Simesema tumeshinda game 2 tu. Naitumia vibaya.